Well, hold on. All good? Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Again, I need to call to order the City of Mexico Beach Charter Review Committee. First off, Tammy, can you please call roll for us?
Ms. Ward,
Here.
Quinn Jenkins is absent. Mr. Schmigelski,
Here.
Mr. Elzey,
Here.
Mr. Cox,
Here.
Ms. Logan.
Here.
Did everyone get a copy of the minutes from last week's meeting, review them, and have any thoughts, suggestions, or changes?
Well, I need a clarification. I'm not advocating changing the minutes because I wasn't here, so what it says is what it says. But our attorney's not here, but maybe Mr. Ryan could help. But I noticed that a member wanted to change their vote from the council manager.
That was me.
Yes, ma'am. Robert's rules doesn't willy-nilly allow one to change their vote after a vote has been taken. It needs to be brought back up for reconsideration, and only those who voted in the affirmative can bring that up and vote to have that redone.
Okay.
So if you want to change your vote, we got to revote.
Okay.
So the vote now stands at 4-1 like it was until we change it.
Okay. Hey, I make mistakes too. So do we have enough to do that? I guess we do.
Well, if you want to go ahead and approve the minutes, we can get that out of the way.
Okay.
Because I can't, this is not changing.
We can't change that. We gotta leave it as is.
Yeah.
Correct. That is correct. So, any other thoughts, suggestions, clarifications? Can I get a motion to have the minutes from last week's meeting approved then?
I'll move to approve.
Good, I second. I'm one of the voters.
You are today. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so the minutes are approved. All right, so then let's go back and address the clarification and possible correction. So how do we, help me out here, Mel.
Sir, all you got to do is make a motion to bring the subject matter back up. Those who voted negative can't vote, but she's not here anyway.
Okay. So
So if you want to make a motion,
I can make the motion because I'm the one that would like to.
no, you can make it because you were one of the affirmative voters.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to bring back to the table to vote again on whether we're going to focus on city manager or, manager,
Council manager.
mayor, council, city manager, or mayor, council, city administrator. Did I say that right with too many words? I did not say that right. I apologize.
You're looking at either the council.
Council,
mayor,
city
form of
manager.
government, or a council manager form of government.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. So I'd like to bring back to a vote for us to do a vote on whether we'd like to move forward with the council manager form of government or the mayor council form of government. Okay, did I say that?
And you are saying
I would,
manager in
Yes.
Shoot, now you've got me confused.
yes,
Council manager
yes,
form versus
mayor council.
council, which has an administrator.
Correct. Yes, that is the clarification on that. Sorry.
And if I may, Madam,
Yes, ma'am. Sir.
I think I don't know if you got the comment I made in the email. The council manager form of government can be a city administrator, can be a city manager, can be a town manager, can be a city manager, can be a chief administrative officer. Like a sub sandwich, it has many names,
Gotcha.
but it's still the council manager form of government. Call it a hoagie, call it a poor boy, it's still a sub. Call it a city administrator, town manager, city manager, it's still the council manager form of government.
Okay, thanks for throwing that wrench into my cog here. I'm thinking, I think Lisa's cogs are moving too like mine right now. Because
Yeah,
I'm having, and I think Lisa and I may be on the same page, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
I will.
I know, and I love that about you. Okay, so there is a difference from my research in a city manager and an administrator in the responsibilities and the roles. One has a little more, I hate to use the word power.
It's
I hate
power.
to use the word power, but that's really what it is. They have more responsibilities and more control over things than an administrator. Am I wrong in that? I mean, and help me just clarify in my mind. And
Sure.
gentlemen, if you have anything to input in this, please, that too. I mean, this is open discussion here, so.
The power in the council manager form of government rests with the council. The manager is operating the day-to-day operations of the community and has the duties assigned either by charter or by ordinance. The
Okay.
power still remains with the council
As a whole.
as a whole.
Okay. So
The
my,
manager could be terminated at any time, whereas a council member can't be terminated without some type of an election.
So, if I may.
No, please.
Just point of clarification here. So, to compare government operations to quote private sector operations, a publicly traded company has a board of directors, i.e. a council.
That is correct.
And the chief executive officer, i.e. the city manager, just like the chief executive of a company, works at the pleasure of the board of directors.
Absolutely.
The board of directors at any time can terminate the chief executive officer.
Correct.
right.
So,
And I get that. Okay, my question is, just really quick, I'm sorry. Where does the mayor fit into this then?
well,
That's what I'm trying where I'm trying to wrap my brain around.
okay, if I can go off on just a small tangent.
Go for it.
I think what we're trying to do here is what's best for the whole community looking into the future.
Correct.
And the fact that we all know that politically, you never know. In politics, people are typically elected by popularity more often than they are capability. I mean, we all agree on that.
It starts in high school that way.
So as we all can agree on that,
Right.
to go back to corporate America and back to the council manager form of government, 5 people probably couldn't agree on the color of his shirt. That's just a point I'm making.
Yep.
So we've got 5 people who sit in a council or on a board of directors. In my view, the mayor's responsibility is the presiding officer of the meetings for the council and a council manager form of government. Run the meetings, not intimately be involved in, quote, the day-to-day operations of the city, because let's be honest, in many cases, the council, they may all have careers and other responsibilities. Most of them do. So to have a person that you, as a board, charge with, you're responsible and you report to us every 2 weeks on what's going on in the city, and we review, the important things, I think is the way a government should run, just like most efficient corporations run.
Yeah.
To have a political figurehead that's dictating policy and internal operations of the city on a day-to-day basis is kind of what really steers me away from the mayor swinging a big stick, if you will.
Yeah.
And you can call it what you will, weak mayor, strong mayor. In my view,
Yeah.
it's kind of irrelevant. I think we need a mayor as a quote, a presiding officer of the council.
Right.
Just like we need a mayor pro tem in case the mayor has an illness or can't be at a meeting
Right.
but
Okay, let me jump in here then. I agree with what you're saying.
I do too.
I am looking at this from my years of experience here, and especially as covering them. So I've watched here, Port St. Joe, Gulf County. I've watched several of the other surrounding little towns. And what I see as the difference between an administrator and a manager, to me, there's a significant difference there, because what may be written in theory and in definitions and stuff is quite often not how things actually happen in our neck of the woods. So I do not want to see a manager in here, because what I have seen of the managers, they have a great deal more power than an administrator. And if we're going to have a council, which I think we're going to have, I elect those 5 people to help run the government. Not the day-to-day operations that the administrator, but the big questions and even some of the little questions the administrator brings to the council for the council's approval. And that's, in a lot of cases from what I have seen here, not just Mexico Beach, but the little area, the manager gets to make those decisions. That's not what I'm putting my 2 cents worth in. I want 5 people making the decision, not one person, whether that be a manager or a mayor. I want 5 people. I don't want one person in charge. So that's why I'm stuck on the determination of an administrator or a manager. I want those decisions to be brought to the council and the council make it, oftentimes with public input behind it. So I'm not for a manager, and I'm sticking to my objection to that word. If we're going to have a mayor-council form with an administrator, I'm good with that. I don't want a mayor-council with a manager.
So,
See what am I making sense? Not really.
I think, we're kind of hung up on some semantics here, because you know more intimately what's happened here for 20 years than most people. But at the end of the day, I think what Mr. Ryan has explained over and over, and both these gentlemen have worked in both forms of government.
They're kind of interchangeable.
The word is kind of, I think there's a reason why, and I read through as best I could all that literature and information we got at the 11th hour.
That was
But
exactly my comment.
I wish I had 2 more days.
Like, this is 96 pages and I'm supposed to read it. Sorry.
Yeah, but where I'm going with this is simply this.
Go back to it. We have plenty of time.
I'm on board with Lisa, as I want those 5 people as my oversight. What I don't want those 5 people involved in is the day-to-day managerial responsibilities.
Exactly.
And I think, God, please all of you chime in here, whether we call it administrator, council, manager, as Mr. Ryan said, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But as long as we can agree that we put in the charter, because right now in our charter, there is no delineation for an administrator, a manager, or anything.
No, there's not.
There were ordinances apparently passed and that were now, I guess, somehow legally in violation of what the charter says. Because I think if we're going to have this change in government, it needs to be spelled out in the stinking charter, not by some ordinance that 5 people passed and then
To change the later.
and yeah, but you're exactly right.
Ordinances can be changed, please, right?
Exactly. So I guess where I'm going with that is, and that's why I really enjoyed reading what I got through, is in that model charter, it spells out succinctly what the administrator manager's responsibilities
Yes.
are.
Yes.
Right now, we're just flying blind. As a
You're
city.
talking about the city, the
model.
model
Yes.
that you mentioned to me. I found the city model charter and asked Tammy to distribute it for us. So that's what he's referring to.
Right.
So, and again, I know I'm seeming wishy-washy and back and forth, and I apologize for that. I just want us to make sure that whatever we come up with and put forward at the workshop, we've all put our heart into, which I know we're doing, and thinking it through completely. That's all. And that's why I go back and forth, and for that I do apologize.
No,
but,
no apologies.
you know.
I think discussion's always a good
So.
thing.
Again, drawing on my experience here, there is a a huge difference, and I have brought this up many times with other issues. There's a huge difference between theory and reality. And we need to work with the reality way more than we do the theory. Because this is a weird place. Most places are weird when you get down to it. So whatever we choose to name this position, I'll go with, as long as it's spelled out.
I think that would resolve the issue, honestly. If we went with administrator in the charter and spelled it out like you said, so everybody knows exactly what what the responsibilities are, I think that will solve the problem that even I'm having. I'm thinking
Okay.
through,
Okay.
I know that will resolve it for me.
Well, and I'm just speaking for myself, and Clint's not here, but I will say, don't totally disagree about the one sentence in the current charter that's created so much
Chaos.
craziness. But I think it's more than that. I think it's that sentence coupled with the fact there's no concrete delineation for what a manager administrator's role is to be.
True.
And if you've got, and I think Lisa made a good point, if you've got it spelled out, A, B, C, D, E in the charter, what this individual's responsibility, because look, if we live long enough, there's going to be turnover in that job. 4 to 5 years is the average, I think, nationwide. So that's going to be a revolving door. But if it's clear, and the problem is, our current charter doesn't make it clear. It doesn't even account for that position.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah, I think 5 people need to be responsible to the citizens that are, elected them. But to say that we're ever going to have 5 totally capable individuals on the council, I think is,
We won't say wishful thinking, but let's say wishful thinking.
yeah.
I think getting rid of the word power is a good thing. I think
Yeah.
authority works much better.
Okay, there you
And
go.
that authority is
Yes.
spelled out in the charter, or should be rather.
Should be.
Now, I went to a place as their city manager and found out, I didn't do my homework evidently, but all employee discipline had to be brought before the city council for them to vote on whether someone should be fired or disciplined or anything. That became a dog and pony show,
Yeah, I could see that being an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what you're talking about.
No.
But that's how crazy things can get if it's not a council manager form of government.
Okay, I see that point very clearly, and no, good heavens, can you imagine?
Oh, yeah.
No, no.
And in this current environment, I know I'm on camera. Council mayor may not be the best choice.
Well, it might not be,
So-
but again, go ahead.
No,
Lee.
you can finish it.
I don't have a problem with mayor-council form as long as we do more than what we have in the original charter and we spell out the mayor and we spell out the administrator. Whatever we do, Steve is right, we've got to delineate. And while I know that the charter needs to be more of an umbrella document with some vagaries in there, we're going to have to be pretty specific on some of these things. This is the second time in the last 22 years that we've had this problem with duties of the mayor. It wasn't as bad the first time. So they haven't had it up to this point in the history of the town. There wasn't an issue with that. But now then, in the last 8 years, we've had it twice. So that tells me we've got to spell it out.
I want you to.
Go ahead, Mr. Yes.
No, but my comment was only going to be, the motion is just to reconsider this, is that correct?
Right, so
So
we don't have to approve it.
Right, okay.
And after our conversation, I may decide, hey, let's just leave it as it what the original vote, which, I mean, can I do that? And just say, leave
I
it?
withdraw your motion.
Okay, help me, I've never been in this particular situation.
So my comment,
so I just wanna
the
make a
original time when we discussed this, my views haven't changed. I feel quite strongly that we need to move to that manager council form of government. And I totally agree with Steve that if we can spell out some of those specifics about what those responsibilities and authorities are, the better for all of us as we move forward. This sounds only getting bigger. It's not getting smaller. We can't. 22 years ago, I didn't live here, owned property here, but didn't live here. I don't have a clue how many people voted 22 years ago. Probably less than, maybe not, maybe it was the 600 that voted this last time. I don't know, but we're only getting bigger. There's no doubt about that. And so if we can prepare for the future the best we can, great.
I'm 100% on board with that, because here's what, and 22 years ago, we were, well, we're basically half the age as a city that we are now.
Right.
And the demographics, as you have, let's face it, more and more new people come in, the city grows, population.
The demographic changes.
The demographic changes, but I think the principles that we can set forth by doing what we're doing can prevent any of the quote questions of authority and power. And when you have, technology is a wonderful thing, but when you have former mayors on video making statements that they've made about, well, I'm a CEO and a CFO, and it only perpetuates what's gone on recently. So anything we can do as a group of volunteers to hopefully present something to our current council that they can all approve, and then the electors, the voters of this city, say yes or no, and we just live with whatever the voters say.
Well, I agree. Two more things that you might find funny.
I like funny.
God, one of them just went out of my head. Isn't so? I'm sorry. I'm having a more than senior moment here.
It'll come back.
Yeah, hopefully it will. The funny thing is, way more than 22 years ago, they used to have, and I verified this from many people who were here before the hurricane. They're now out of town. They used to fill the old firehouse, which was the gathering room, and they would simply ask from the table, all in favor, and they'd raise their hands, and the entire town voted. That's how they did it for many years. Too bad we can't go back to that. Wouldn't that be a hoot? So, and even before the hurricane, in the time that I was covering it for the newspaper, we would pack the place. It was rare to have fewer than 20 people, and most of the time we would have 40 to 60. A lot of times it would be standing room only in the meetings, and they would be raucous and they would be intense, but the people made their feelings known to the council in those meetings, and the council actually listened to the people, mainly because they were overwhelmed, because you get 60 to 80 people in a closed room, and you start listening to what they're saying, and you're thinking, So a lot of how things end up happening is through the resident, or I say the citizen participation, because a lot of times out-of-town property owners would fly in for the meeting if they were disturbed by something. We have not gotten back to that point.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will. Makes for great entertainment. So hopefully we will have in the near future a community that actually does participate in this and helps guide what happens, because at the end of the day, it's what the people want 99% of the time. It's always what's best for the town, And a lot of times, sometimes what's best for the town is not what the majority of the people want. But in most cases, it's what the majority of the people want. So we have to figure out a way to get this back on track. And hopefully we will go back to that. It doesn't, I don't know that it makes that much difference. It just may be my brain fog today. Mayor, council, or council administrator, manager. Just remember, when we go to put this on a ballot,
Well, we will have had the
Making-
work, I'm gonna interject, we will have had the workshop at that point, and we'll have been able to explain it so that citizens, I would like to, we haven't got to this point, but have that in the evening so people can come after work, but explain our breakdown and what we've added so that they understand when it goes to the referendum that this is what it's gonna possibly do if the council approves this.
okay, as long as
I
we
think
do
that will
that,
help,
because that was
yes.
gonna be my point.
Yes.
You don't want to bring such change in one giant step that the people are going, I don't wanna do this, I don't know what this is about. If we can explain it fully to what we're doing, then we'll be okay. I hope.
And well, I agree with that, and we've talked about that
Yeah.
a few times. I totally agree with that statement. Something else that was brought up to me, I think by Mr. Ryan, after one of the first meetings, the government's they've actually been operating as a quasi council
Council.
manager anyway for the
Yeah.
last several years.
Yeah.
So we're not really, for us and this conversation, we see that it's not a huge leap putting it on paper. It's already operating that way. And correct me if I'm
Yeah.
stating it. I mean, that's kind of really what we're already doing.
Yeah.
You're memorializing what's currently happening
Thank you.
into the charter.
Correct.
Oh, and here, sorry,
And-
this is what I had forgotten. Let me get this out before I forget it again. Remember that with the mayor and the council, the mayor in the past has often taken a lot of authority, thank you for that word, that really belonged to the council, not just currently, but in the past. It depends on the strength of the other 4 council members to keep the mayor in check. We have had councils where there was nothing but yes people catering to a mayor. We have had a council where the other 4 constantly questioned the mayor, and that kept it from being one person's power, one person's authority for the most part. So whatever we choose, it's going to be the fact that you're going to have strong people with backbones in those council positions and not yes people. And that's,
It's interesting the way you just worded that, because it's exactly, I think, the mindset we all have about we get into the council manager. If all of you have probably been here longer than myself, but have we ever seen a city council function the way that this group of volunteers is functioning and articulate and be respectful to each other? And I mean, we have not. And going forward, I don't think we should expect any political group of 5 or more people to, quote, get along. And that's another main reason why we don't need a person at the center of the council with wearing the mayor's hat with any perceived or real power more than the other 4. That's why I like the one person responsible for day to day. And then the 5 of you have to get in a room and beat your heads together to make sure that you like what this guy's doing. It's not a question of her authority or my authority or Lee's authority. We're elected officials to respond to what the people want. Then we can kind of, we're volunteers, and so we can separate our personal differences on things and have articulate, smart conversations.
I
But-
think if we were even elected, we'd still be able to do that.
Well,
I
one
do,
would hope.
because
One
we-
would hope.
Yes.
Well, one would hope, but I
But
still
you
feel
s-
like if we were, that we would be able to do that. I mean,
Well, I
it
would
just,
hope so.
yeah, we would hope so.
They call it being able to agree to disagree without shouting and cursing.
Walking out. Okay, so then let's circle back then to what Mel brought up from the minutes then. So I need to make a motion to rescind my motion. Help me out here, I'm so sorry. Help me out, Mark.
You had a great dialogue. I commend you. I'm gonna throw water on your motion.
Okay, throw water on my motion.
A motion to reconsider under Robert's rules, I believe, has to be at the same meeting.
Oh,
I'm not an expert, but I believe it has to be at the same meeting.
Can you just make another motion?
May I,
no, then I need to stand with what I voted,
No.
correct?
here's my point. Yes, August Umpty Dump, you said I would support the council-manager form of government. You all agreed that once you go through the entire charter, you're gonna come back with this new document for one final look, correct?
We did.
At that final look, if you have changed your mind in terms of supporting the council manager form of government, it's appropriate at that point to say, I've changed my mind and I no longer can support that.
Got it, okay.
Okay, in other words.
And-
So I can be as wishy-washy as I want until we come back to the final document.
And that was pointed out last week. What you said was pointed out last week, that we were going to come back and do that.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
That is correct.
So we just spent a half hour sharing.
No,
You had excellent dialogue. You
no.
really did.
I think it was important.
I do too. I do, you know, because I threw it up there last week, just kind of, and again, so. But Mel makes a good point. Okay, let me see here. Quinn sent an email.
Your comments on some of the sections, but not the first section.
From today, okay, so 7.4 and 7.9. So why don't we jump into this then? We should be able to get through a bulk of this, if not the rest of this today. I did get a couple of emails stating they were glad that we were reading out over for those at home, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue if you guys are okay with that. Just kind of breeze through it. All right, we're going to start with section 6.05, and I'm also going to keep reading from what was online. You guys go with the old version, and let's make sure we got the online version is correct, because some people also said they didn't realize that we had two different versions. So, okay, 6.5, actions on petitions, actions by the council. When an initiative or referendum petition has been finally determined sufficient, the council shall promptly consider the proposed initiative ordinance in the manner as stated in this charter, or reconsider the referred ordinance by voting its repeal. If the council fails to adopt a pro-initiative ordinance without any changes in substance within 60 days, or fails to repeal the referred ordinance within 30 days, after the date the petition was finally determined sufficient, it shall submit the proposed or referred ordinance to the voters of the city. Submission of voters. The vote of the city on a proposed or referred ordinance shall be held not less than 30 days and not later than 180 days from the date or the final council vote thereon. If no regular city election is to be held within the period prescribed in this subsection, the council shall provide for a special election. Otherwise, the vote shall be held at the same time as such regular election, except the council may, in its discretion, provide for a special election on an early date within the prescribed period. Copies of the proposed or referred ordinance shall be made available at the polls.
I think you should add available at the polls and perhaps online. I mean, should we? Because,
I'll put a question mark in
Yeah,
there,
okay.
take it. Okay. C, withdrawal of petitions. An initiative or referendum petition may be withdrawn at any time prior to the 15th day preceding the date scheduled for a vote of the city by filing with the city clerk a request for withdrawal signed by at least 2/3 of the members of the petitioner's committee. Upon the filing on such request, the petition shall have no further force or effect, and proceedings thereon shall be terminated. Initiative, results of elections. If a majority of the qualified electors voting on a proposal initiative ordinance vote in its favor, it shall be considered adopted upon certification of the election results and shall be treated in all respects in the same manner as ordinances of the same kind adopted by the council. If conflicting ordinances are approved at the same election, the one receiving the greater number of affirmative votes shall prevail to the extent of such conflict. Referendum. If a majority of the qualified electors voting on a referred ordinance vote against it, it shall be considered repealed upon certification of the election results. Recall. The qualified voters of the city shall have the power to remove from office any elected official of the city in ordinance with the general laws of the state. And below it, the state statute is referenced. Article 7, general...
Excuse me just a minute. Since Florida statutes change year to year, does this need to be
I believe-
double checked?
We'll
To
check on
make
it.
sure that they haven't added or deleted?
Well, you can refer to the state,
Or just say refer to state
but
statute?
without specifically mentioning the number.
Okay, because that's very specific right there.
It is, and there are specific ones throughout this document, actually. The only thing that's not specified in the online document are the ordinance numbers attached. None of those are documented. So. Alright, Section 7, I made a note for this section to say just the statute, not the exact number.
Okay.
Section 7, severability. If any provision of the charter is held invalid, the other provisions of the charter shall not be affected thereby. If the application of the charter or any of its provisions to any person or circumstance is held invalid, the application of the charter or its provisions to other persons or circumstances shall not be affected thereby. Conflicting ordinances. All ordinances insofar as they conflict with or are inconsistent with the provisions of this charter shall be declared invalid and are hereby repealed. Continuation in force of non-conflicting ordinances, repeal of uncodified ordinances. All ordinances in effect upon the adoption of this charter, to the extent not inconsistent with it, shall remain in force until repealed or changed as provided herein. Standards of ethics. The general laws of the state governing the standards of conduct of public officers and employees apply to all elected officials, public officers, and employees of the city. In addition, the council may, by ordinance, establish a code of ethics supplemental to general law for such officials, officers, and employees. And below the state statutory reference code of ethics, Florida statute is noted. Per diem and travel expense of city officers, employees, and authorized persons, all officers or employees of the city of Mexico Beach shall be bound by the provisions of general law governing per diem and travel expenses. Again, the state expense is noted. Purchases, competitive bids. The council may establish by ordinance a method of competitive bidding for purchases made by the city of Mexico Beach. State law references inclusion in the charter. Where not inconsistent or in conflict with specific provisions of this charter, the general law of the state and the state law references in this charter shall be deemed to be part of this charter and this city. Its officers and employees shall be governed thereby. Charter amendments and revisions, filing of same with original. This charter or any portion thereof may be amended or revised in accordance with the general laws of the state. Any amendments or revisions shall be filed together with the original of this charter in the office of the city clerk as provided herein. State statute is referenced. Changes in governing law, charter amendments. Intent. It is the intent of this section to allow this charter to be updated and amended should there occur changes in the law governing this charter and the operation of this city. Then the city council may, by ordinance, adopt and codify such changes and include such changes in this charter without referendum or vote of the electorate of the city. Again, state statute is notated there.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
should we discuss,
Quinn's is in this section.
because
Yes.
I'd actually put a star by section 7.09 as well.
Okay. So Quinn's email that she sent, the first one, she's just got a couple of questions. It's, section 7.04 is her first reference under standard of ethics. In place of a supplemental code of ethics as currently stated, would a penalties subsection be beneficial in preventing any future internal chaos? For example, on page 70 of the Model City Charter document provided by Mr. Mark Ryan, it states, any person convicted of a violation of this section shall be ineligible for a period of 5 years following such conviction to hold any city office or position, and if an officer or employee of the city shall immediately forfeit his or her office or position. The city council shall establish by ordinance such further penalties as it may deem appropriate. I'm gonna let everybody chew on that one for a minute. Anybody want to start with thoughts?
Mr. Ryan?
Mr. Ryan.
I'm going to preface my comments that I'm not a lawyer.
Okay.
The model charter is a nationwide model. So some of the things you may see in the model charter may be applicable in New Hampshire or Wisconsin, may not be applicable in Florida. Florida law may trump any type of added penalty. That's where your attorney will need to advise you.
How do you guys as a council feel about having something like that added in? And if we need to, then we'll have Clint do the research and get back to us.
Well, first, I'm gonna have to read, and I've read it before, but I can't tell you what it says, the code of ethics that's in the Florida statute. I need to see exactly what that says. That could be adequate.
It's pretty thorough, but I mean,
I've read it before, and I think it covers almost everything, so I'm not sure that we need.
so let's have Clint research it then for us and ask him to get back to us at the next meeting
Okay.
for clarification. If it's covered, if this clause is covered within the state statutes, then we're good. Otherwise, we may need to add it.
We can go back and look at it.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Gallery.
I'm sorry. Public.
If we're not that big a town, and if we start going down this avenue, we're already having a problem finding qualified candidates to run for council. This may steer people away. I think we have more pressing matters than something along this line. Speaking as a citizen who's been to several meetings, I think we have enough going on in the city that we need to get straight. There's something like this that would deter qualified candidates from running. It's just a thought.
No, all right. But we have to remember that we don't want to also let what is currently the chaos completely dictate everything and all the changes we're making now. We have to think about the future and the fact that we are going to have a younger population moving in, even younger than me. And I mean, and so hopefully we will have candidates that will still want to be a part of it and run. I mean, just back and forth,
Well, the penalty.
And you've been in all of our
the pen-
meetings, and your information and everything, all your input has always been valuable, John, so just reminding you.
Do we have to follow that penalty, or can this city make its own penalties, like a 5-year ban from running? Is there other penalties involved? Do we have to follow that by Florida statute, or is that something the city,
So we have to follow the Florida statute for sure.
okay?
And then if this were, let's say Clint researched it and found that, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, my thought is that he researches it and finds that the penalties are within the Florida statute or ample enough, then we wouldn't have this added. However, if there are no penalties in there, and I don't remember that part, quite honestly, if there is or not, and we want to add something, this is just a suggested verbiage. So we could definitely say we would like to add this and make it our own penalty. Maybe it isn't the whole entire paragraph like this.
And this ethics charge goes before the state ethics committee, the county, who is the arbitrator? Who is making the decision on whether they violated the ethics or didn't?
That's a good question, considering, and I can say this after all the stuff I had to go through last year, so.
Well, that, in my word, and I'll use Mr. Ryan's term here, I'm certainly not an attorney. But the key word in that to me, is quote, convicted. I've heard that,
Thank
there's
you.
a big difference between being charged and being convicted.
Don't I know it?
Yeah,
And
both of us.
so-
Thank you.
So I think, if you underline convicted there, that indicates you went before a judge or a jury and you were found guilty. That means convicted. It doesn't mean you had charges brought against you.
Correct. Yes. So,
So then, if you're charged with this, will you be suspended from your duties until the trial?
go ahead, Mr. Rainey.
I think only the governor can suspend.
Really? You sure?
Mark, we might need to talk to you after the
Really?
meeting.
An elected official is.
Elected.
Yes,
Exactly right.
not a volunteer.
The council can kick me off this charter committee anytime they want to. I'll serve their
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah, we're.
Yeah.
we're-
Like the planning and zoning board, they can kick me off because I serve at their pleasure.
Yeah.
We serve, we sure don't get paid though, right?
No, no.
Sometimes.
Amen.
I never got paid. All right, not that I would want to anyway. All right, clear research is included. I'm making a notation on here.
So we don't know where it goes, Mr. Ryan?
Probably Ethics Commission.
Yeah.
If I may, Madam Chair, if an individual is alleged to have violated the state law, it goes to the Ethics Commission. If it's a local ordinance violation that this potentially could be changed to, I don't know. I don't think the state ethics is going to rule on a local.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
It'd be up to us to designate what happens.
Okay, let's get back on track. All right, the other section that Quinn notated in her email was in regards to section 7.09, changes in governing law. So this is her question. Does this section state the council may make charter amendments without referendum or vote? Or is this doable only in the case of changes in state law? Quinn's understanding is that Florida statute 166.031 requires proposed amendments to be approved by electors. I read a request to amend without referendum from the City of Hallandale Beach Charter Review Committee to the AG in 2003, and it was ultimately rejected. Just wondering if we could expedite these proposed changes. And please note, my personal opinion is that the public should be involved in the procedure. That's for Quinn's email.
So I think the question is that last sentence there, the city council may by ordinance adopt and codify such changes and include such changes in the charter without referendum or vote of the electorate of the city? Is that's what we're
Yeah.
questioning?
Yeah, and it's a very good question, because that means that people wouldn't have any say-so at all.
Well, I think it depends on the severity of the change. In other words, for the city council to pass an ordinance saying we're going to change our form of government, no, you can't do that. But let's say there's a problem with, let's say the state changes how elections are done.
Right.
And then we need to make an adjustment to our charter to comply with state requirements.
State law.
That would be okay.
But then that could get out of hand very easily.
I think it gets stupid.
Madam Chair, it is common when the legislature will pass a law, say dealing with election qualifying periods, that your charter may be in conflict with, that there'll be language in that state law authorizing the local government to make the change without having to go to referendum. That's very common.
Okay.
The writer in me says that needs to be clarified, whatever y'all think.
I think it remains as is.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And let's see. Got this last little bit, and then we can have open discussion. Officers and employees, rights and privileges preserved. Nothing in this revised and amended charter except as otherwise specific.
Did you skip the one above it?
Did I? Oh, sorry. Coffee. Thank you. 801, pending matters. All rights, claims, liabilities, actions, orders, contracts, and legal or administrative proceedings shall continue, except as modified pursuant to the provisions of this revised and amended charter, and in each case shall be maintained, carried on, or dealt with by the city department, office, or agency appropriate hereunder. Officers and employees, rights and privileges preserved. Nothing in this revised and amended charter, except as otherwise specifically provided, shall affect or impair the rights or privileges of persons who are city officers or employees at the time of this adoption. Continuance of officer employment. At the time this revised and amended charter takes effect, if the city employee holds an office or position which can be abolished or ordered vacated hereunder, he shall continue in such office or position until the taking effect of some action authorized under a provision hereof, directing that he can vacate the office or position, or that the office or position be abolished.
Can that be put into plain English?
I gotta read it again.
I believe I read a paragraph in the model that is a little easier to understand than that.
That
Unfortunately,
really-
I did not pick that up and bring it with me.
That really is absurd.
I totally agree. I had to read it like 6 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there is a model charter paragraph in there that was pretty good. All right. So, coming up on an hour, we've gotten through the paper, so at this point, we can start going back through. We need to, in my opinion, we need to add a section clarifying the responsibilities for the city administrator / manager. I do believe there is a section in the model charter. So do we all want to we can review that for the next meeting to come back, or we can go ahead and work through some of it now. It's whatever you guys would like to do. I know that we could start with what the city published as qualifications for the position.
And compare with the model.
And compare with the model and see what we like, don't like, want to add, change, that kind of thing. We can do a little homework and come back to the table, if y'all would like. Any other, thoughts? I will get Tammy to email Clint about the one section for clarification there. In regards to
I
section.
only have that
7.1.
language on my phone, so I prefer to be able to print it out and see
Right.
it before we start discussing it here.
Yeah.
I was gonna just interject that this is September 21st, and I think our goal is to have our workshop and hopefully present our recommendations by the end of October, so it could
First of
be
November, yeah.
1st of November.
Let's see, didn't we just do, okay, October 5th, it says complete Article 7 and Article 8.
So we're ahead of schedule.
We're ahead of schedule there. October 19th, full review of changes with public comment. November 2nd is open, so we're a little bit ahead of schedule.
I crammed everything in for today.
No, and it was great. And we had a little bit of breathing room in my schedule too, so it was good. So,
My concern is that we have sufficient workshops that we get the public to come and listen for.
so November's city council meeting would be the 7th. That's the 9 a.m. meeting. And then their evening meeting, and Tim, you correct me if I'm wrong, would be the 21st.
No, it's the second and fourth Tuesday. In November,
Yeah,
that
second,
will be the 14th and the
Oh,
28th.
14th. Sorry. Okay.
You got Thanksgiving.
28th is that after
That's
Thanksgiving?
after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So we've got a week and a half in November before if we held workshop, if we can do it, and so if y'all schedule, we could do a workshop, at least one. I don't think we're gonna need more than one, honestly.
Okay.
I truly don't think we
Okay.
will. Like on the evening of the 26th of October, that gives us 2 weeks to come back together and make any, adjustments if needed from the workshop to present to the council. I'm willing to guess,
So.
we're still gonna meet between now and then. If we
So
never,
we've got scheduled meetings the 5th and the 19th of October,
we keep those.
and add workshops, maybe the 12th and the 26th. Do we think we need 2 public workshops?
I don't think we will. I personally don't, but you guys tell me what you think. Public, what do you think?
The only question would be, how detailed are you gonna get? And then if some people can't make the first one, they can make the second one.
When were you suggesting the workshop? What date?
Steve was saying the 12th and the 26th. And then our regular,
Is that-
our morning meetings would be the 5th. So basically, we would
I'm not
have,
gonna
What
be
month?
here
What month
the
are we in
5th,
here?
so
I'm not gonna be here
October or
on the 5th
November?
either.
So maybe we could reschedule that meeting.
okay, so I'm sorry,
What month were you in? I'm sorry.
October, I'm sorry,
October.
yes ma'am.
All right, so October.
5th and 19th for regular meetings.
Okay.
And I heard you, Steve. And then the
And Lee's
12th,
not gonna be here.
yeah, I heard both of you. And then the 12th and the 26th would be workshops.
12th of
October, and the 26th of October would be the public workshops. Now, Stephen and Lee just mentioned that they could not make the 5th meeting on the 5th of October. Do we want to just do it a day earlier? Would that help the city if we did it a day earlier, or make it worse on y'all?
I'm not available that week.
You're gone that week, okay.
Appointments out of state.
Madam Chair, perhaps you could do your October 5th meeting on the 12th. And then.
And flip flop and do the workshop
And
and,
do it if you need another meeting after on the 19th, and then your workshop on the 26th.
would that work for you, Lee? Would you be okay with that?
I'm back here on the 12th. Is that, am I okay with it being on the 12th?
If we did a workshop on the 5th when you're not here, and then on the 12th,
That's not.
No, I'm saying, don't meet on the 5th, meet
okay,
on the 12th.
okay. And then you
Meet
do
on the
workshop in the
19th
evening,
if you need it,
okay.
and then your workshop on the 26th.
So you feel like we could get away with one workshop as well?
If we advertise it.
I don't know your community as well as you all, so this is not gonna rely on you all.
Okay. So then that goes back to you guys. We can do that. We can skip the 5th,
So skip the 5th, okay.
meetings on the 12th and 19th, workshop on the 26th.
Works for me.
Good?
19, 26.
Okay. All right.
I hope Clint's good with this.
Well, that will give your attorney additional time for preparing the final document for your review too, by not
That's
meeting
true.
on the 5th.
Yeah. Well, and then in November, we've got, after the workshop, we've got 2 weeks. That gives him time to get the final document, and then I feel like we should probably come together on the 2nd of November, if possible, to do one final review before it goes in front of the council that following Tuesday. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think we need to come back.
Works for me.
All right, let me get all that jotted down.
So, no meeting on October 5, regular meeting on October 12 and 19, public workshop on October 26, a regular meeting again on November the 2nd, and then we hand it over to the council.
On the 7th. All right, so November 2nd is going to be final review. Okay, workshop, okay. So we're going to go 2 weeks without a meeting. But if we have anything that we come across that we need to share, send it to Tammy,
She can send
and she can distribute it for all of us. So if there's something you feel like we need to have in our midst while we're working on our stuff.
Are we going to compare the advertisement for the city administrator's job to,
Yes, the
Yes.
model.
Could you, can you please send, I think it's still online, but could you send us the city administrator
Posting.
posting? Correct.
Mr. Lindeman did an outstanding job of
He did.
trying to take this into a Word document, showing the changes and all.
Yes.
Whose responsibility is this given to at this time?
We gave it to Clint.
Okay.
I don't know though that Clint's got enough on he's got a lot on his plate. And he's just got a lot going on. And so I'm wondering if we should have somebody else help us with this. And it's in PDF form. I mean, I know how to make these things do this kind of stuff if you want me to, or I can find somebody else.
Do you have the time?
I have the time. I do, so.
Well, if you have the time, then you do it.
I will update it and get it to Tammy, and she can distribute it then to everybody, and I'll try to get all the notes updated then from his time.
Thank you.
And if there's anything that you guys see I missed, just let Tammy know, she'll let me know. But I'll do my best
What a cat.
to make it. She's crazy.
Now, I want to ask you if you, as a past city administrator, are you happy is not the word, are you comfortable with what we are looking at in the changes? You've been quiet. I know that you have opinions on this based on not just your broad experience as a city administrator or manager, but your experience here. Are we covering all that we need to from your standpoint? Do you have anything that we haven't touched on?
Well, when we're talking about listing the authorities of the new city administrator, manager, whatever you want to call it, we also got to do that for the city council members
And the
Okay.
mayor.
and the mayor,
Yeah,
and how those relationships are supposed to work.
okay.
And that is the
Crux.
pudding, shall we say, that we're all looking for, is how that all meshes together.
Okay. So let's make sure we add all that in there because he's
No, he's been there,
done
done
this
that.
by fire.
Yeah.
And, you
I
know,
don't know if you were here, he spoke a lot when we talked about the council manager and the mayor council form of
Okay.
government. You may not have been here at that particular meeting. It may have been before you were, I don't remember.
Okay, okay.
I think you were sitting over here.
Oh, all right.
You had not actually officially become the alternate. It was the
Okay.
meeting right before you
Okay.
became the
Okay.
alternate.
Okay.
Well, okay.
I shouldn't say
Then-
spoke a lot. He interjected.
Okay.
He made his views known.
Right, having all that in black and white would
Right.
give the person who sat in my seat some picture of how things are supposed to work. And if the city council members or the mayor gets off track, the administrator manager could take this out and say, this is the charter, you're off base. I do agree with the fact that you had mentioned that sometimes people who sat in that seat are a little weak and not bringing forward things that they should have. I agree that 100%. You know, different personalities sit in the city administrator seats. This gives credence to that fact, to give them the ammunition they need. Maybe complain is not the right word, but to try to get things done the right way. And we also have to put in there, what happens if there is a charter violation?
Okay.
Do we slap them on the wrist with a wet noodle?
So let me ask you a question. Is there not supposed to be, in other meetings I've been involved with, there's like a parliamentarian. That person typically has been either the city administrator manager or the city attorney, one designated to do it.
In smaller communities, it's normally the attorney.
Okay, to say, okay, wait a minute, you're out of order, let Mr. whatever. I also see that that is not position, the parliamentarian position is not actively being operated. I'm trying to say this as nicely as I can.
And we have.
And if
had-
Clint were sitting here, I'd say the same thing to him, is to say it to him, and he's not here.
We have.
And I'm not trying to bang on him because he's not here.
We have a track record of the city attorney not doing that. Depends on the city attorney, but we've had many years where that just didn't happen. As opposed to one in particular in the city of Port St. Joe, he didn't let him get away with anything. And he lit him up every time. And it was great because he kept them on the very straight and narrow. We haven't had a lot of that, so.
I definitely.
Straight and narrow would be a good thing.
So do you have to, according to Robert's rules, keep it as the city attorney, or can you appoint that to the city administrator?
Oh, I
To
think
be
that would, I think
parliamentarian?
that would be,
Depends on who's qualified.
yeah.
Now, there are courses you
exactly.
can take and tests you can take to become a parliamentarian, but that's extensive, it takes a lot of time, and in a place as small as us,
I
you're
don't
not
think
gonna
it's
find one.
necessary, no.
No, but at least make the effort to know the rules, and, I mean, again, maybe I'm just kind of dreaming at this point, but I think that we need that. I believe that's part of the
agree.
chaos.
I think what Mel, what you said about clarifications of duties and responsibilities for, and I'm just gonna call all five, the council. I mean, to have that in black and white would be beneficial because, let's be honest, unless you've served, you get hired at a new job and you get thrust into it. Well, generally there's some training, someone's holding your hand. Well, in this case, you get elected to serve the public.
And you don't know
And you,
squat.
and you don't know squat. I mean that with all the love in my
I know,
heart.
I know.
But because the
But-
person ran because they love their city.
And just because the person sitting to your right or to your left has a personal vendetta against you, well, nobody's going to show you the ropes. They're going to try to crucify you in the public eye. So, yeah, anything we can do to make, when Lee's elected or whoever, to make their transition and help them understand what their role is, what they can do, what they can't do. I think, we don't want to get this deep, but part of the requirement after you take your oath is you ought to read and understand Robert's rules. And you don't speak until it's your turn to speak when you're at the table, and unless the chair opens it for council discussion. I just think, that's been a lot of that's why there's not been good dialogue recently, is because there's just been a forest fire.
Well, in one of my communities, we actually had a little wooden block with like a mailbox red flag. And if you wanted to speak, you put your little red flag up, and whoever put their flag up first, the mayor called on to speak.
That's interesting.
You didn't talk until that red flag was down on, someone else's desk. So that really created a lot of order. It looked silly having a little flag there, but I mean, it worked, and I hope we don't have to go to that extent here.
Well, sometimes we have to go back to the basics
Elementary school.
to get the job done.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just got to do it, and that's not a horrible idea. All right, any other comments, public comments, thoughts, John?
I do. The difference between an administrator and a manager, and I talk with people when I'm out walking and stuff. The thought is a manager is brought in to manage the city, doesn't have to answer pretty much to the council.
That's actually not true.
Okay. Where administrator does, and the concern was if the manager has too much control, citizens did not vote that person in. They did vote the council in.
Right.
And I think if you're going to tell the people, educate the people on the difference, because I think they want to make sure that the elected officials that they vote for and say they're going to do for the city has the power, authority, not one person. Because if there's not checks and balances, one person can do all kind of damage.
I totally agree with that statement. I
Well,
do.
well said,
The perception
John.
is out there because I've actually had this very similar things have been stated to me privately in a group and an email. So, which is why we have this charter review going on. I'm sure, I don't know if other members have gotten feedback. I'm
There is
sure you
some.
have. So,
I asked Mel specifically when he brought this up, would he be the one that led the discussion about the roles and responsibilities of a manager council, and he said he would do that.
Who did?
It's on the recording. It's
That
on
was
the
well
recording.
said, and that is my fear. That's why I was pushing on the difference between administrator and manager. That is exactly my fear.
in my understanding, and again, Mark's here, Mel's here, we've got people that have got the experience. A manager does the budget, decides all the decisions, makes all the decisions, presents the budget to the council, and it's approved with the mayor and the council. They basically
Makes all the
do
decisions.
make all the decisions. That's my understanding a manager does. An administrator, however, is operational, handles all the staffing, the departments, hiring, and all of that information. But the budget is actually worked on with the administrator and the mayor together, and then it's brought back to, and anything spending over a certain amount has to go through the mayor and then to the council and blah, blah, blah. That was kind of my understanding of it.
Okay.
I
Is
could
that
be.
still your understanding of it?
No, I'm listening to how
Okay.
we're all doing. I'm getting a better view every time we,
Not.
exactly, every time we do something and we talk and I read something, I get a little clearer and a little clearer. That's why I've been back and forth and back and forth, so.
I wish Clint was here. For the last 5 years, I've had to interact with the city of Port St. Joe on a weekly basis. They have a manager council form of government. That manager, and I like Jim, he's a nice guy. He's like the weakest guy ever. He refuses to make a decision unless he takes it to the council.
Yes.
And so it all depends on that individual, because, so if we used him as an example of a manager council form of government, all of these questions would be dispelled. All of it would. Just look at me. He won't even choose a paint color without asking the things.
The fact that he does that, and Mel, please correct me, tells me that he understands his role. He understands that he's responsible for city operations
Exactly.
not to decide what color a building's gonna be painted, or not to decide major things. He understands that he operates and works for and with the council.
And I say that to say that I don't believe that in that example, this manager has overt authority or power or anything. He probably does really understand his job within the confines of what, or what the parameters of his job are.
And I think when we get to the relationships and we come back to the table with this information and we've all looked, I believe that's going to help me with a lot. Yes.
And see-
I really believe this will help me with some clarification on some of the things I'm thinking right now and kind of,
And see, that is how, I know him, I've known him for years
He's
since
a
he
great
first
guy.
went in there. That is how I see it should work here. This is my personal opinion. All of those decisions should come to the council because we, the people, elect those 5 people to make those decisions. He implements those decisions. And that's where we've gotten our lines crossed a lot. But that's how I see it, because we don't elect the manager, administrator, whatever. We elect those 5 people, and we expect 5 people to make those decisions. So that's what I would like to see, and I think that's a very good example. Switching gears just a little bit, here's something that I think we really need to look at. In the original charter, the city administrator and the city clerk both answered directly to the council. That was how it was set up. That is when the city clerk was the finance director. Just 2 years ago, the job was split. We had a staff accountant created, and then the city clerk took over the administrative only, not administrative and finance. I have heard overwhelmingly from people in the community, and this is my thought entirely, whoever handles the city money, whatever the position is called, needs to be in the charter as reporting directly to the city council, not under the city administrator as it is now. That is a huge issue.
Lisa, that's a very good point. I think just for internal controls functions, that would separate
The
the chain
money, the understanding of where the money is going and how it's being spent needs to come directly to the 5 people we elect. It does not need to be filtered through a city administrator. And we've got an issue with that right now. So that needs to be clarified in the charter.
Here, here.
So.
I know.
So, wait, and this, but this is good because this is all giving us something to think about, talk about at our next meeting. So, with that thought, let's also throw in, if you guys feel up to it, and I'm a visual person, a flow chart of what we think, of how things and who to what. Just so we can all have something to talk about. I mean, it helps us. And I added in the relationships, the financial director. If we're going to put that in the charter, I added that on my list. So I've got the 4 relationships we're going to review. We're going to look at the model charter, and job descriptions are the mayor, the council, the city administrator or manager, and financial director. Those are the 4 that we're going to come back with information at the next meeting, and all of us figure out where and how we want it worded. And we may all be in agreement on some things, or we may not.
3 administrators ago, the flow chart was changed, and it wasn't discussed, and it wasn't brought up, and I had issue with that, and I have issue with what was. I don't know if that's still the same flow chart that's being used now, but that flow chart.
Is there a flow chart that exists, Tammy? Can you email it to us at some point?
Yeah, email it to us.
On that point, who changed it? And on what authority?
That third back
So
administrator.
it didn't run through council?
No, it did not.
But it should have.
It should have. It absolutely should
As a
have.
voter, as a
It
taxpayer.
absolutely should have.
So
Okay.
since we're just having a generic conversation, we're now, and Tammy, correct me, but we're a city of what, 50 odd employees now?
A little under that.
A little under?
What?
I think it's a little under. I think it's
48.
like 46.
46.
I thought you said 100, I'm
No.
sorry.
No, but
Under.
I understand and respect what we are size-wise as a community. And we've been through a lot lately, but I think we're big enough as a city now that human resources is a hat.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and to ask the manager administrator to wear that hat along with his other managerial responsibilities, Mr. Ryan, I'm going to engage you here. What are your thoughts? I mean, how big does the city need to be to have an HR director to make sure your jobs are posted correctly? And
I've been in both communities where I wore that hat as well as the manager's hat. And I've been in communities that had HR departments. Being the HR hat certainly gave me a lot of knowledge and experience in areas I never dreamt I would be. 50 cent side version, I'm actually in Florida case law, where we fired a police officer for rightful cause. We followed case law in the termination, and it went to Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals said, we know you followed case law, but we don't agree with the case law. And we said, what? And we appealed all the way to the state Supreme Court. And it landed the same day as Gore versus Bush. Oh. And the state Supreme Court said, get out of here, we're a little busy.
Now,
so it's a valid point. I mean, it's a lot when you get 40, 50 employees and you've got to manage benefits and all these other things, plus make sure that, quote, your hiring and firing practices. I mean, it's a lot.
didn't Adrian work as HR when he was city clerk?
Yes.
So the city clerk position used to handle HR.
Hey, Tammy, I'm going to defend you. You shouldn't have to wear that hat.
And since you're no longer the finance director, see,
There
there's
have
room on
been-
your schedule to do that.
I will say,
Other duties as assigned?
I'm sorry.
Other duties
Other
as
duties
assigned?
as
The city clerk wears many hats.
But that's how we always handled it until 2 years ago when the city clerk position was changed. The city clerk / finance director / HR is how it was always done, so.
Wow, that's a lot of
It is a
responsibility.
lot, it is a lot.
So added that to our relationships then, just for us to do. And that's enough homework for me. Mayor, council, city administrator / manager, financial director, and HR manager for all of us to look at and consider and come back 2 weeks and pick it up. Right, 2 weeks?
3 weeks. Yeah, 3, because
3. That's
the
right.
5th we went to the 12th.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'll send a reminder. With my emails, I'm sorry, I'm having great difficulties with my email. Chris and I both are. We cannot bring our Microsoft 365 up, and it's very frustrating.
Oh, no.
So we're having to do everything on our phone.
okay, two weeks. Today's 21st. Our next
3 weeks.
3, you're right, 3 weeks, it's the 12th. We're missing 2 meetings, we're at 3 weeks.
Gives us a lot.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I don't want to stay for a while.
Really?
No. I'll second that motion.
Awesome, motion ended. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all for the conversation. Wonderful conversation.